Hi, I'm Laura Flanders. This week on the show, consumer crusader Ralph Nader on his attitude to the 2016 election. And finally, a few thoughts from me on winner-take-all media coverage and why it hurts. All that coming up on the Laura Flanders Show, the place where the people who say it can't be done take a back seat to the people who are doing it. Welcome. So ours is a beautiful country, wrote Howard Zinn at some point, except it's been taken over by people who have no respect for human life, liberty, or freedom. Our job, wrote Zinn, is to take that power and that country back. And that's exactly what our next guest has been doing his entire life. He quotes Howard Zinn in his new book, and his dedication is to the notion that a small minority of people can make an enormous difference. We can break through power, he writes, and he says everywhere he speaks. Ralph Nader has also put that phrase on the front of a new book, Breaking Through Power. It's easier than you think. It's just out from City Limits Books. Ralph, welcome to the program. Glad to have you back.
Thank you, Laura.
So let's start. Let's start with the election stuff. You've got Bernie Sanders getting 12 million votes. You've got Donald Trump, whatever you think of him, upsetting the GOP establishment apple cart. And yet people still feel as discouraged as ever about the system. What's going on?
Well, Bernie sort of aborted his movement when he endorsed Hillary without qualification at the convention. That sort of shattered it. He's trying to bring it together with this little group called Our Revolution. But I don't see it happening unless they put full-time organizers on the ground.
No, he said he changed the convention platform. He got more progressive elements in the Democratic Party platform than ever.
That's right, but look what Hillary's done since, right? And she's not talking $15 an hour. She's just talking raising minimum wage. She's not going after TPP in her recent speeches because she doesn't want to embarrass her main supporter, Barack Obama, who's going to try to ram it through Congress in December in the lame duck issue.
The Trans-Pacific
She is not saying, Wall Street, here I come, you're going to be afraid of me, the way she did when she was going after Bernie's vote. So she's reverting back to the corporatist, warmongering Hillary Clinton. The best button for Hillary Clinton is a nice picture in the middle, and on the top, more war, and on the bottom, more Wall Street.
So Bernie did exactly what you didn't do, as he ran inside the party. What's your verdict? Doesn't sound too positive.
He did the right thing running inside, but he should have maintained an autonomy. Instead, they vanquished him and just absorbed his energy and are proceeding to betray it.
Yeah, and what do you make of what he's been saying since about third parties are okay as long as it's only at the local level, not national?
Well, that's because he recognizes we have a rigged system run by two parties that have created a duopoly, winner take all, and they've told people, look, you're wasting your vote, just vote for either one of us. And if you don't break that with proportional representation, single, the rank voting, as they call it, more parties, getting rid of gerrymandering, it's just going to get worse every 4 years. If you cast a least worst vote, let's say for the Democrat Republican, you're guaranteed to lose your bargaining power. They'll never look back because they know they got you, least worst, and every 4 years it gets worse. So the key is civic organization in the congressional districts to upend the system. And he's right, it's good to start locally because, most local offices are dominated by one party, and often there's no opposing major party for the office. And so there's a real opportunity at the minimum to come in second and build the base.
But what about Donald Trump? Alarm bells sound on every front. I can't go anywhere without somebody telling me that the apocalypse is nigh, is it?
Well, the amazing thing is how many people still are sticking with him. He has been shown to cheat everything he meets, just about. He's cheated his workers, his creditors, his consumers, Trump University. He's cheated taxpayers. He doesn't pay hardly any taxes, and he's a corporate welfare king. And
the New York Times today called him the king of the tax break.
Yeah. And here he is. He has people who have relatively modest income who are being ripped off right and left. They're supporting him. That's what happens when you only have two choices and they can't stand Hillary. They go for him because he's the outsider. And also, they do want to believe. That's the history of politics when he said, don't worry, I'll fix immigration. I'll fix the health care. We're going to get rid of Obamacare, but I've got a plan. But he never says what the plan is. He is a boastful prevaricator of the first order. And the only reason he's on the stage is because we have a two-party tyranny. And he's made a lot of money for the media, which gives him free publicity. So he has turned politics from a circus into a burlesque show. And that's interesting for people. You know, people turn on the TV, they watch the debate. It's going to be the biggest debate turnout in history.
Dan Rather wrote this week that the pressmen, I think he said, or journalists are falling over backwards to be fair, and that's what Trump has been able to manipulate. I thought, you know, ratings have a bit to do with it.
Well, look, the problem is worse than that. This man is an empty suit.
Yeah.
He's a boaster, and he's a bully, and he's a liar, and he never corrects himself. You put those traits in the White House, you have disaster.
So should you, at the national level, cast your vote if you're in a contested state, a highly contested state?
You go to someone who is going to vote for Hillary, and you thinking and say, look, let's not vote. You basically pull away from vote from Hillary and pull away a vote from Trump. Actually, there's a computer system to encourage people to do that. And then you can vote for your choice, Libertarian or Green Party. But that's, I mean...
So that's what you recommend people doing at
it's disgraceful. You know, you have to be that way. Most countries have multi-party systems. They have proportional representation, instant runoff voting. And they don't say to you, you're going to be a loser and you're going to waste your vote unless you vote for the two parties that have brought us this corrupt political system that's driving our country into the ground.
Like this programming? Keep it free. Support our show by donating at www.lauraflanders.com. Thanks.
So let's go back to your book for a second. I mean, you could look at it and say you make two kind of contradictory arguments. On the one hand, you say government and the corporate state are less responsive now than they were in the 60s when Unsafe at Any Speed was written, when consumer advocacy of your sort was really pioneered. And at the same time, you say we should do more of that kind of activism.
Yeah, it's not contradictory. It's just if you ask people what's the main instrument for a vibrant democracy in this country, what do you think they'd say?
Don't know.
It's the Congress. You know, it's got the most of our power in one place, 535 human beings, and we can't control them. You got 1,500 corporations who don't have a single vote, and they control a majority of the members of Congress with cash and offers of jobs and so forth. And we can't control them back home. 1% of the people organized in Congress watchdog hobbies. Well, let's face it, you know, people are in hobbies, right? They watch birds, they collect stamps, they collect antique cars, they are bowling enthusiasts, they play poker. They spend 200 to 500 hours a year on their hobby, and about $200 to $500 a year on their hobby. What if we had a watchdog of Congress hobby? Bingo, because there's a huge left-right alliance about fair play in this country. Consumer protection. You think right-wing people in this country don't want a living wage? You know, they're working for Walmart and they say, no, my ideology, I really like $8.50 an hour. You know, I don't want 12 or 14. Nonsense. When you get down to where people live, work, and raise their kids, the ideology begins dissipating. They may still hold the difference on reproductive rights, school prayer, gun control. But on the other big issues of empire, of corporate waste, of breaking up the big banks, of Main Street over Wall Street, of civil liberties, of criminal justice reform, they want to breathe clean air, clean water, eat safe food, have safe medicines. And all of that can be achieved by focusing on your two senators and representatives and connecting with other people on the internet throughout the country. So it's an agenda drive, not just a single issue.
Back in the 80s, I was part of the movements for medical attention for people with AIDS and for patients to have patients' rights and be taken seriously. And we were making real gains at the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s. People were dying, but the movements were growing. And I always felt like we should grow this movement into a movement for single-payer health care.
Right.
Instead, what happened was we really focused. Cancer over here, AIDS over here, breast cancer over here, even types of cancers, different groups. The argument that I got and get today as people review all the anniversaries of those movements is, well, we would never have got the change we got if we hadn't been so laser focused, if we tried to be broader.
That's where you do both. You get all the laser focused groups to unify for the bigger change while you're working on the issue, the single issue of AIDS or cancer. Because that's where the energy is. They're already showing up. They're already got their arms locked.
So a lot of people are showing up these days around Black Lives Matter or around this extraordinary Native-led mobilization for clean water and against drilling in the Dakotas. Are those examples of breaking through power like those you write about in the book?
It is, but you see their opponents cut them off at the pass with the legislatures. They control the legislatures. So we need a movement called Corporate Destruction Matters.
Are you going to start such a thing?
Well, we have in different versions, but it's amazing how people will say to me, climate change is tremendously serious. We got to do something about it. And I say, what about Congress? That's the only way you're going to really have a big switch from fossils and nuclear to sustainable solar, wind, and energy efficiency. Congress, that's not where the action is. Hello. I mean, that's not where the action is. When I go up on Capitol Hill, Laura, you know who I bump into?
Who?
I bump into coal industry lobbyists, oil industry lobbyists, nuclear lobbyists. Somehow they think that's where the action is. So you can't abandon your legislature, who is holding massive amounts of your power as a citizen under the Constitution. You got to recapture it.
Chase Iron-Eyes, one of the leaders of the Standing Rock protest, is running for Congress. Isn't he doing just what you said? And are you going to go out there and support him?
Yes, well, there are a lot of people to support. I'd like to have him on my program. One of my first missions in the 1950s involved the oppression of Native Americans. We called them American Indians then. So I'm quite familiar with the struggle. And this situation out there in North Dakota is really arousing all the Native American people around the country. So it's a great organizing focus for other battles that need to be conducted. Remember, my running mate in 96 and 2000 was Winona LaDuke, and she's been out there.
That's right. What's the role played by media in all of this? I remember when I was at FAIR, the Media Watch group, we used to study coverage, and no electoral body was less well covered, in fact, than Congress.
Yeah, well, they have 450 full-time reporters covering Congress every day, and they're ditto-heading each other. They're not really digging into the
We tend to cover
stories.
the Senate, the presidential races, but not so much what's happening in the House.
That's right. And also, for example, they don't cover the fact that the biggest budget in the federal government, $680 billion, is unauditable, Pentagon budget. Okay? So that's a big issue. That comes in 90% in the polls, or 95%. Every small business understands that. Everybody understands that when you're spending that kind of money and you're losing it all over the world and misusing it, and the contractors are stealing the Pentagon day after day, that it should be audited. Well, it's the only agency in the government that is not auditable under federal law. So it's violating a federal law that kicked in 1992. Now, isn't that a great left-right issue? That's not a technical matter, as you know, Laura, because that will point to enormous waste that can be used to rebuild the public works, enormous, easy to go into wars overseas because you have a black budget that's never audited in the Pentagon, like the toppling of Libya's regime, and now all the chaos, Hillary's war, I call it.
You're listening to The Laura Flanders Show. For more information, go to lauraflanders.com. We had a couple of questions from viewers. One of them had to do with revolution. She said, from everything she's learned from you, the two parties are impossible. Real change is never going to come through the electoral system. What do you think the chance is for revolution in the United States, and what would be its rallying cry?
Silent revolutions are the only ones that really succeed over the long run. And you just defeat the members of Congress, and and defeat the state legislatures. And if you don't defeat them, you scare them politically where they turn around. We had some of the most pro-corporate senators and representatives in the 1960s, and they had their finger to the wind. They heard the rumble from the people, and they became champions of consumer and environmental laws. So it's how many people turn out back home that scares the wits out of these politicians if they want to continue in their job. And if they want to fight it, they're going to lose their job.
So there was one other question from the audience which had to do with money in politics. Someone saying, are baby steps around reform of the influence of money in politics worth it when you have such a concentration of wealth in so few hands? Isn't money inevitably going to have undue power?
Only if the votes are not organized to count. It all comes down to the people are the ones that have the votes. The corporations have the money. But money doesn't elect politicians. Money puts ads on TV to try to, deceive the people and manipulate them. But if people do their homework and they know what the issues are and they know what the record of the legislators are, there's nothing stopping them.
So two last questions. We may come back to the election, but I've got two on my list. One has to do with today's capitalists. I was just in Rochester, before that Buffalo. We were in Cleveland earlier this year for the Republican convention. You see, the capitalists of the 19th century sort of invested in cities like that. You see legacy institutions with their names all over them. Rochester, Eastman House, huge museum. Today's capitalists, what do they invest in? Where's the infrastructure that's coming of today's gilded barons?
A good point. They don't even have noblesse oblige. They're letting all these public facilities rot. But we've never had more capital, and a lot of it is the people's money, pension funds, mutual funds, all under control of the big corporations in Wall Street, and they're not using it productively. They want to speculate with it. They want to risk with it, because it's not their money, it's your money, and they can rake off huge fees, you see? So that's why we have to say, look, we own the major wealth in the country. Why do we let corporations control it? We own trillions of dollars of pension money. Workers own that. We own the public airways. We own the public lands. We own the public budgets, right? And we don't control what we own. So that's a big step forward, right? That's like hitting a double and you want to go to home plate. We already own the major wealth of our country, and it only now needs to be controlled by various mechanisms and to make it into a major political issue where you never allow anybody running for political office that doesn't answer the question, legislator, challenger, why don't you support our owning, our controlling what we own? And they'll say, well, what do you mean? And then you go through the examples. That's why we don't have an audience network. That's why you're not on national TV. Because they control our property and they decide who says what 24 hours a day, and they get it free. We're the landlords, and the ABC and NBC and all that, they're the tenants, and they pay us no rent. I mean, what are we, suckers? I mean, when are we going to start saying enough is enough, right? They're driving the country into the ground. They're driving our trust to our descendants into the ground because we've got a shattered country and an economy and an ecology. How do you get people really upset to break their routine and show up at rallies, marches? Because that's what they're afraid of. The politicians in the pockets of the corporations are afraid of the people organizing. And if they don't organize, they know how to flatter them, fool them, and flummox them. But if they're organized, they're terrified. And if they're organized left, right. You know, if a billionaire decides, say, I'm going to hire 1,000 full-time organizers, 2 in every district, and 30 in Washington. And here's the turnaround agenda. You know, full Medicare, living wage, cracking down on corporate crime, deep-loading the military budget, all that and more. You can't believe what will happen. There's never been a major movement in this country that doesn't start with full-time organizers. Labor, for example. The environmental movement, for example. The women's right to vote movement. Abolition, of slavery, it's got to start with full-time people.
Organizers, and how much of the population?
Less than 1%.
You've been holding in your lap a flyer for something. You want to tell us what it is?
Yeah, so this is the way we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Unsafe and Speed, my book that got the auto industry regulated, with far less than 1%, by the way. It's called breakingthroughpower.org. It's all streamed, 64 hours, in May and late September in Constitution Hall. You'll never see anything like it. This is like a graduate course in contentious, effective civics. It gives you tools, it gives you open windows, it connects you with people who can help you, and it's as far away as your computer. So go to breakingthroughpower.org and they'll tell you how to get the streamed version.
Ralph Nader, a different take on the 1% from his new book, Breaking Through Power is Easier Than You Think, just out from City Lights Books.
Readers think, thinkers read.
Thanks so much for being with us.
You're welcome, Laura Flanders.
Americans, especially at election time, are given the message that their vote matters and that they can have an impact on the result of elections. So they get busy, like the people behind me. But the U.S., almost alone among Western democracies, conducts winner-take-all elections. So on the day itself, win 50.1% of the vote, and you win all the representation. Losers, even those who gain lots of support, are shut out. Now that would be bad enough, but alongside our winner-take-all elections, we have winner-take-all media coverage. And that, when it comes to making change like the people behind me want, is arguably even more of a problem. Let's recap. In countries with systems of proportional representation, candidates are elected in proportion to their party's share of the vote. In the U.S., we don't do that, in office or in the media coverage. On November 8th, Americans are electing a president and all his or her appointees. For the last year, we've heard about little else. But we'll also be electing 34 senators, 435 members of the House, governors of 12 states, and thousands, literally thousands, of candidates to state legislatures. Now, how many of you had to check those numbers? I know I did. And that's no surprise. For 20 years, every study of media coverage has shown that Congress, which was intended by the framers of the Constitution to be the most democratic federal body, receives the least amount of serious media coverage. And mayors and governors aside, unless they're in star-studded or particularly contentious races, local candidates have an even harder time getting covered. Now, I tend to agree with progressive left reporter Arun Gupta on what is at stake at the top of the ticket this year. Trump and Attorney General Giuliani, wrote Arun, would relish using the National Guard to crush blockades of oil pipelines and trains. White supremacists, neo-Nazis, the Klan, and the alt-right would all be welcome into his administration, overtly or covertly. There'd be an all-out assault on reproductive rights and Planned Parenthood, writes Arun Gupta. You can find his entire story at our website. Vote for the presidency. By all means, your vote counts. But unless you're in a critical part of a contested state, it is down ticket that your voice can really be decisive. Clinton or Trump, whoever wins the White House this time around, your state legislators, attorney general, and governor will either fight with them or against them. Right now, Republicans control 60% of those state legislatures and governorships. Think Trump is the only problem? Think again. But don't look to the money media for prodding. That's it for this week. I want to thank everyone who made this report possible. If you want to help keep coverage like this coming, please follow the links and contribute at lauraflanders.com. And if you want to tell me what you think, write to me. That's Laura at lauraflanders.com. Laura at lauraflanders.com. Thanks a lot.